My name is Neha Mittal. I am working as an assistant professor at Ramesh Institute of Vocational and Technical Education, Greater Noida. In this video lecture, I am going to discuss about the anti-malarial drugs part 4, which is a lecture number 15, and it is under the subject of medicinal chemistry, code BP601T. We will start with a few drugs in this. First of all, we will understand a brief on malaria and the anti-malarial drugs which are used to treat the malaria under the category of Bigwinites, Provinyl, dihydrotriazine and Cyclogonyl pamoate. So, in this lecture, we are going to discuss basically Bigwinites, Provinyl, dihydrotriazines and Cyclogonyl pamoate. First of all, we will understand a brief on malaria, as we have discussed earlier in the previous slides also, that malaria is a protozoan disease which is caused by the Plasmodium genus. It is spread through the bite of female mosquito, that is female Anopheles mosquito, and it is a life threatening disease if it is not treated well. It is spread to the pupil through the bite of the infected female Anopheles mosquito. It is important to remember that the only female Anopheles mosquito feed on the humans, whereas the male mosquito feed on the plant nectar for their food. People who infect with the malaria often show some symptoms like fever, chills and flu-like symptoms. Treatment with Bigwinites. Bigwinites is a drug which is generally used as a anti-hyperglycemic drugs, or we can say they are used for the treatment of diabetes mellitus type 2. Here we see that there is an enzyme dihydrofolate reductase, in short we say DHFR. This is a very important enzyme for the de novo synthesis of nucleotide in Plasmodium falciparum. And this enzyme is responsible for the existence of any cell, because it is responsible for the formation of DNA and RNA. If somehow we block this dihydrofolate reductase enzyme, so it is very difficult for any Plasmodium parasite to survive. So, anti-malarial drugs like cyclogonyl and pyrimethamine target the inhibition of this particular enzyme, that is dihydrofolate reductase, so that they can show the pharmacological action as anti-malarial drugs. Now, we will start with the Bigwinites. There are the various Bigwinites derivatives which are used as anti-hyperglycemic, means they are used to maintain the glucose level in the blood, or we can say they are used to treat the type 2 diabetes, that is diabetic mellitus, and they are also used as anti-malarial drugs. We see the few examples like metformin, phenylethyl bigwinites and Provinyl. If we talk about the Bigwinites, so how they exert their anti-malarial action. So, we see that they inhibit the cysteine protease by binding to endogenously to the metals, which is responsible for the inhibition of cysteine protease. Provinyl is anti-malarial drugs which was attributed solely to the inhibition of parasite dihydrofolate reductase by the metabolism of cyclogonyl. See, here we see that proguanyl is a prodrug which gets into the body and it's transferred, or we can say it gets metabolized to the cyclogonyl, which is responsible for the anti-malarial action. We can say action or activity. If we see the classification under this category, so we will found that there are the two substitution, one is as R and the another one is R prime. So, we will see the difference between the proguanyl, chloroguanyl, bromoguanyl and nitroguanyl. If we see there is a substitution of chlorine group at this position and hydrogen at this position, it leads to a moiety that is proguanyl. If there is a chlorine at both the position here as well as here, it leads to the formation of chloroproguanyl. In the same way, if we see that if there is a substitution of Br and here there is a substitution of hydrogen, it leads to the bromoguanyl, and if there is a substitution of nitro group and here hydrogen, so it leads to the formation of nitroguanyl. So, it is a very simple and basic classification in which we can understand the difference between proguanyl, chloroguanyl, bromoguanyl and nitroguanyl. First of all, we will start with the proguanyl. Proguanyl is a drug which can be absorbed through oral medium, or we can say it is absorbed orally. If we talk about its physical property, then it is a white crystalline powder. It is slightly soluble in water and sparingly soluble in ethanol. And if we see its solubility in the methylene chloride, so it is practically insoluble in the methylene chloride. It is used mainly for the prophylactic treatment of malaria. If we talk about the term prophylactic, means the medicine which are used to prevent from malaria. So, it is a very important drug for the prophylaxis purpose, which is used against malaria. If we talk about the metabolism of this drug, so we see that proguanyl and chlorproguanyl, both the drugs, the proguanyl as well as the chloro derivative of the proguanyl, are the commonly used bigwinites in the treatment of malaria. Exceeding further, we will see the metabolism. So, we see that the proguanyl is a prodrug. It is not active as it is, as we know about the prodrugs. Prodrugs are not active as it is, it gets into the body, it gets metabolized by the respective enzymes or the respective chemicals, and then they get converted to the active metabolites and then they exert their action. So, proguanyl is a prodrug which is inactive itself like this, and after getting metabolized in the body, it change into the active metabolites and then it exerts its pharmacological action for which it is used. So, it is metabolized in the liver to the active moiety of cyclogonyl. So, cyclogonyl is the active metabolite of proguanyl which is responsible for the anti-malarial activity. Now, we will discuss about the cyclogonyl. cyclogonyl act as a dihydrofolate reductase inhibitor. This enzyme is responsible for the synthesis of DNA and RNA. So, if cyclogonyl will bind to this enzyme or will inhibit the activity of this enzyme, then the Plasmodium species will inhibit the DNA synthesis and ultimately the death will occur. Next, we will see the absorption of proguanyl. If we talk about the absorption, then we see that from the gut, when the proguanyl after oral administration reach to the gut part, so it gets absorbed very nicely and then it gets metabolized into the cyclogonyl, which is an active metabolite of proguanyl. If we talk about the half life, so we see the cyclogonyl is having a very short half life, means 2 hours के अंदर वो अपनी एक्चुअल कंसंट्रेशन से हाफ कंसंट्रेशन पर रीच्ड हो जाता है. So, in this manner we will feel like that it is having a very short duration of action, but again we found that from the proguanyl to the cyclogonyl, this conversion is very slow. So, there is a formation of cyclogonyl slowly and then this cyclogonyl having a half life of 2 hours. So, we can understand here that cyclogonyl have a short duration of action, short half life of around 2 hours, but its plasma profile reflect its slow conversion from its parent drug, that is the proguanyl. The antifolate activity of the compound against malarial parasite relies on their cyclic triazine active metabolite, that is cyclogonyl and cyclochlorproguanyl. Further, we will understand about the mechanism of action. So, as I told earlier also that they inhibit the DHFR enzyme, which is responsible for the synthesis of DNA, interfere in the folic acid metabolism. There is no nuclear division of malarial parasites takes place. It is a slow acting erythrocytic zygiontocytes. It acts on the erythrocytic form of malaria. It is also effective against the pre-erythrocytic stage. Pre-erythrocytic stage is a stage where the parasite do not affect the RBC, whereas it is getting mature and it is getting multiplied in the liver. So, in the liver it is known as the pre-erythrocytic stage. So, we can understand that this drug is also effective in pre-erythrocytic stage of Plasmodium falciparum. Next, we will see the uses. So, we will find that it is a component of Malaron tablet. Malaron tablet is a combination of atovaquone and proguanyl, which is used in both chemoprophylaxis and in the treatment of malaria. Next use, we will see that this drug is often used for malarial prophylaxis alone or in combination with chloroquine. Sometimes we see that this medicine is used as alone and also sometimes it is used with a combination of chloroquine. This drug is also used in the prophylaxis and treatment of Plasmodium falciparum in combination of atovaquone. Recommendation, we will see that proguanyl may be used throughout the pregnancy for prophylaxis. As I discussed earlier also, prophylaxis means when any medication is used for the prevention purpose of any disease. So, in pregnant women, this drug can be used as to prevent from the malaria, and as well as in the treatment of malaria provided there is no resistance. If we find the adverse effect, we see that no serious reactions with Provinyl have been reported. Rashes, hair loss are the commonly side effects which are observed with the Provinyl, as well as mouth ulcers have been mentioned, abdominal discomfort along with the vomiting. Next compound we will study about the cyclogonyl pamoate. As we discussed earlier, that it is an active moiety of the prodrug, that is Provinyl. When Provinyl get absorbed into the body, it reached into the liver. So, in the liver its metabolism takes place into the active moiety, that is the cyclogonyl. So, cyclogonyl is a antifolate, antimalarial drug such as pyrimethamine and cyclogonyl, which is used for the prevention and treatment of malaria. Cyclogonyl pamoate is a pamoic acid salt of dihydrotriazine, which is used, or we can say which is suspended in a lipid vehicle. The dihydrotriazine moiety has been described as the active metabolite of the Provinyl, and which is responsible for the antimalarial activity of Provinyl. Provinyl is a prodrug and it is cyclized in the body to the triazine derivative, that is cyclogonyl, which is responsible for the inhibition of dihydrofolate reductase enzyme, which is responsible for the formation of DNA. So, here we can understand that they inhibit the DHFR and there is no nuclear division takes place, and ultimately the plasmodium survival becomes difficult. Next we will talk about the properties. So, this drugs belongs to a organic compound which is known as aminotriazine. These are the organic compounds containing a amino group which is attached to a triazine ring. Provinyl is similarly effective in chemoprophylaxis of malaria. Exceeding further, we will discuss about the uses. So, here we will see that cyclogonyl is one of the few antimalarial drugs that act on the erythrocytic. Erythrocytic means when the parasites is affecting the red blood cells. So, this is known as the erythrocytic form, and pre-erythrocytic forms means when the parasites has not reached to the RBC and it is affecting the liver. If we discuss it in a very short, then we see that the sporozoites which are present in the saliva of any infected malarial mosquito, when it bites to the human, then what it do? It spread the sporozoites to the human blood. Then from the blood, these sporozoites first of all travel to the liver. So, when they get infected, when they multiply, when they mature and when they infect the liver, this stage is known as the pre-erythrocytic form or the pre-erythrocytic stage, and after around 7 to 10 days when they get mature and they get multiplied, then they transfer to the RBC and then they invade the RBC. This stage is known as the erythrocytic phase. So, this drug is effective on both the stage erythrocytic as well as the pre-erythrocytic, that is the hepatic form of the malaria. The drug may act as a true casual prophylactic as is to be suspected from its similarity to Provinyl. Cyclogonyl pamoate is antifolate and probably disrupt the normal nuclear divisions in Plasmodium by inhibiting the folic acid metabolism. If we talk about the dose, so we will see there is a different category of the cyclogonyl in which the dose is made. If we see, it is a oily suspension, जैसे कि हमने पहले भी बताया था, they are suspended in a oil based vehicle. So, here we will see that it is a oily suspension administered to each age group at the following doses. अगर हम इसकी डोज की बात करते हैं, so different stage of life, 6 months to 2 years, 3 years to 5 years, 6 years to 13 years or over the 14 years. We cannot say that the dose remains same. We have to see the patient age and then according to the age we will calculate the dose amount. So, here we can see that for 6 months to 2 years the dose is 0.6 ml, whereas for the 3 to 5 years we can see the dose exceed from 0.6 to 1 ml, whereas for the 6 to 13 years the dose is now 1.8 ml, and over the 14 years we can give the dose up to 2.5 ml. The main side effect with this cyclogonyl pamoate is found QT prolongation. So, it is contraindicated that the patient who are having the heart problem are not recommended for this drug because they produce the QT prolongation. So, here we studied about the Provinyl and their metabolite, that is a cyclogonyl pamoate. Thank you so much, students. I hope you learned a lot from this video lecture, and I hope will continue and try to deliver more relevant content in the next lecture. Thank you so much.